Nothing normal, nothing abnormal. I mean, another day here at the iHypocrite Progress Report podcast. It wouldn't be normal if there was no audio issues, but everybody on time. That's a new one. Basically, that doesn't happen every day. Wow, what an exciting lineup. Welcome back, everybody. We have two exciting guests here. We have Thomas Rousseau of Patriot Front, who I have never spoken to before. Very controversial figure. You know, whenever I have guests on, I put links to their Twitter account or whatever where people can go find them. And you know, you don't have a Twitter, and I'm like, well, what if I put a Patriot Front URL, is YouTube gonna like strike me just for putting that URL? Like, I don't even know. You know what I mean? It's a little bit scary, but I'm very excited to talk to you. Thank you for being here, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And we have returning to the show, we have Pete Quinones. Quinones.
Dude, me and my brother pronounce it differently, so it's fun.
We had Pete on the Murdoch stream 2 years ago, but of course those streams got a little bit crazy and hectic. So it's nice. It'll be nice to have a chance to talk to you a little bit more intimate setting. Thank you for being here, sir.
Yeah, and no problem. I've met Thomas in real life before. We've talked, so we're good.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so listen, the way we do the show is I have clips for us to watch, and then we'll give our thoughts on them. Now, normally we're a little bit behind the news here. Like, I put the clip show together for Sunday night, and we watch the shows here on Wednesday, the clips, and so it's like last week's news, basically. That's just the way I do the show. But something happened yesterday, a bombshell that I would be remiss not to ask you guys about, get your reactions to. And this is the SPLC DOJ indictment. For anybody who hasn't been on the internet in the last 24 hours, the DOJ has charged the SPLC with, I believe, wire fraud. Don't quote me on that. Some kind of fraud charge. And what is, you know, got everybody talking is that it was revealed in the indictment that they were paying various people, various far right people within various organizations to do what exactly is not totally clear, but they were paying basically over like the last 10 years. They paid $3 million into white nationalism, let's say. One guy who was at the Charlottesville 2017 Unite the Right rally was paid almost $300,000. The names of the people who received the money have not been revealed in the indictment, so everybody is speculating and pointing fingers online. And I've also seen in the last 24 hours...
sounds like a bunch of women, doesn't it?
yeah. I've also seen several people tweeting about Patriot Front and saying, you know, like, I told you these guys were SPLC. And it's like, well, hold on. You didn't say they were SPLC. You said they were feds, which is a different thing. The SPLC is not funded by the feds. Yeah. Patriot Front, for the record, was not mentioned at all in the indictment either. So it's kind of weird to see people doing this bizarro victory lap about that. I have other thoughts on the timings and the implications, but I want to throw it over to my guest first. Pete, why don't you give us your reaction to the news, and then we'll go over to Thomas.
Well, the first thing is I see people celebrating this. Celebrate when their nonprofit status is taken away, people go to jail, and basically the organization is broken. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to pay a fine. They may have to change their name to something else, but they'll keep working. That's one of the reasons why you didn't see all the money that they've sent to Antifa or Antifa. You've seen all they're doing is concentrating on who they're sending on white groups. And, you know, that seems about the most Jewish thing that I can think of, especially coming from this administration. So we can celebrate their destruction when they are destroyed. Until then, I mean, great. People are noticing that they're doing this and they're doing that, but I like to see results, you know? I mean, you look at the ingredients of a recipe on the counter. Oh, wow, that doesn't look like anything. Cook it. Start cooking. Bake these people. Until then, yeah, what am I going to do? Rah rah. There's no win here. We saw James Comey was arrested. They dropped the charges. I mean, they were. Come on, people, wake up.
As somebody who has been charged, even though the charges were eventually dropped, it's still quite the hassle. I will say that it's definitely a good thing that their lawyers are probably going to have to work overtime on this. And the SPLC has always been very elated whenever Patriot Front has been sued, or whenever they have been able to disparage or target the livelihoods of Patriot Front members, business owners, etc. Am I taking a victory lap with streamers and ribbons? No, certainly not. But I do think it is a good thing because this is a dubious business strategy, which I think is the real reason that we need to realize that these companies, the ADL does it too. They create hysteria that they then profit off of, because these are all presumably donor funded. I think they get some government grants too. So it is definitely a false business practice for them to be funding or creating the same type of radicalism that they're using as a backdrop to send out their newsletters to get old people and Jews and rich people, etc., to donate money to them. And yeah, so to touch on the Fed jacketing real quick that you mentioned, a lot of these accounts on Twitter, it's a lot of the same ones. It's a lot of the conservative accounts. They're probably networked in some way, with these types of talent companies or anything. But they are coming out again and saying, oh, well, I knew Patriot Front was blah, 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 blah. We weren't mentioned in the indictment, of course. And you notice none of these accounts are going out and saying that, oh, well, I knew the Aryan Nations was feds all along. I knew the National Alliance had feds in it. Oh, I knew that the American Front, which has nothing to do with Patriot Front. I think it's from the 90s. Oh, I knew all this stuff. Like, they're not saying that about these other groups, which are actually listed in the indictment. They're only listing Patriot Front, which of course is not. Control F Patriot Front, 0 results. Control F Thomas Rousseau, 0 results. It's because they have an agenda. It's because we're around, and it's because it's engagement bait. A lot of what these people are doing, they're just trying to get clicks, and they realize that Patriot Front gets clicks, and you realize a lot of these like conservative ex-influencers, they're probably actually secretly a team of Indians. It's very soulless social
at least spiritually, yes.
Spiritually or literally, until proven otherwise. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. It's certainly a good thing that it's happening. I hope it bears fruit. I'm not holding my breath until it does or doesn't. But the fact that this kind of thing, these types of charges can be laid, does exhibit not that, and I'm not saying, oh, well, now it's my politics fighting against their politics. It's just a matter of, this is basic justice, that you shouldn't be allowed to run a business, which is making lots of money, millions of dollars off of solving a problem that you are actually perpetuating.
Yeah, it's like calling in bomb threats and then fundraising to find bomb threaters. It's definitely sketchy. I don't know how the legalities are going to play out though of it. It doesn't seem like the strongest open and shut case with being fraud, but we'll see how that goes. At least there's like Pete said, we'll see if they get destroyed. Obviously, I'm not losing any sleep over the SPLC getting destroyed. I hate the SPLC. I don't know if they're as relevant as they used to be. I don't. They a lot of the people, like the Jewish founders and the guys who are running it, they kind of left the ship several years ago, and it got replaced with like a bunch of black women running it, and you don't really hear about it much anymore. But it's still just an evil scourge that I would be happy to see destroyed. There is, however, a downside to this, in my view, a negative effect, which is, over 10 years people who have legitimate racial grievances or just understand the problems, the tensions in America, racially speaking, have been trying to explain to sort of these MAGA conservative types who love to say things like Democrats are the real racists. They love to say Patriot Front or feds because they want to believe that there is no racism in America. It's just like a leftist hoax that they're freaking out about. And so this gives them basically that, it revitalizes that talking point that was sort of dying down over the last several years as people we're coming around on, oh, there actually is like a lot of white nationalists. There's like a lot of people who are genuinely have white nationalist ideological beliefs in America. And now out of nowhere, we're just right back to square one of like, those are all feds and leftists. What do you guys think about that?
I could comment on it first.
Sure.
So every single group that they reference is like at least 10 years old. All the other groups referenced in that indictment, except for the Unite the Right group, which wasn't a group, are like from the 90s, or very early 2000s when any of those groups were active. So this is an incredibly old, list of allegations. And so, obviously they're not creating racism. They are pinpointing certain groups that they believe that that the SPLC can end up with like legal leverage against, that they believe these groups are going to be involved in some way that they can get criminal or civil litigation against them. And obviously that happened a lot with Charlottesville, and it happened a lot with these other groups as well. And then the SPLC uses that litigation to tell everybody that, oh, we need another $1 million for donations, and it's a big racket essentially. Now, obviously, this is a complicated thing that conservatives on X are probably not likely to understand. But they wouldn't be doing any of this. They wouldn't be trying to co-opt or direct or manipulate the social zeitgeist of quote unquote racism if it wasn't a real organic happenstance. And also, you could point out to these people that they also think that the United States has always been racist. So, all the way back to the founders, it was all one big psyop. That doesn't make any sense.
One of the things you have to understand about Con Inc. is that they're just happy to be at the table. They will scream about leftism and troons all day long, but yet all they ever do is punch to their right. All they do is seek to take down right-wingers. And you're seeing that now. I mean, there's a cadre on Twitter who are blaming all of Trump's failures on podcasters. Right. Podcasters need to be arrested. And, the administration, they tag the administration. These are the guys who are, I'm the guy who told Trump to go to war with Iran. I'm the guy who, pointed out that deportations aren't being done. Oh, I think that was Greg Bovino, the guy who was actually in charge of it at the time. No, these people, they're just happy to be there. A lot of those people on Twitter, their living is the engagement they make on Twitter. A lot of them are house husbands, very feminine, a very feminine take on things. And so they can punch left all they want and no one cares. No one on the left cares. They don't really give a shit. So what they do is they just punch to their right. And, they've taken this, they obviously have aligned themselves with the Trump administration, which has proven itself to be controlled by Jews. It's a work of international Jewry. And, that's who they're aligned with now. People who should know better, people who 10 years ago would have talked to you and sat you down to tell you about international Jewry. And now they're on that side, whether it's because they're broke, whether it's because they're being blackmailed, whether it's because they're just scared, whatever it is, these people are, what's funny is when you look back at like people like Pat Buchanan and Rob Braco and all these people, Sam Francis, who got canceled, they weren't canceled by the left. Right. They were canceled by conservatives and quote unquote right wingers. So, I haven't understand who the real enemy is. And the real enemy to me isn't, somebody who, doesn't know what gender they are. It's the people who are sidling up to power and being like, hey, that guy over there, he might have wished someone happy birthday this past Monday.
Yeah. So my final thoughts on this, and you guys can do final thoughts too, and then we'll get into some clips. I do think this is probably good for Trump. It's like a little bit of a victory at a time for conservatives at a time when he's not really, not everybody's super happy with him. And also it's sort of a victory for him over the left, just in the, like that Very Fine People hoax with Charlottesville was kind of like a big deal for him in his first term. And now whether it's true or not, the narrative now is being changed into like this whole thing is like a leftist hoax. Charlottesville was like I might have said they were very fine people, but they were like actually the Nazis were all like being paid by the SPLC kind of thing. So I think it is like a real victory for Trump. Probably not that great for Patriot Front, who are catching all the collateral damage totally undeserved for no reason, but people are going to use that to confirm their Fed jacketing suspicions, whether it's completely baseless or not. And I do think also, like I said, a minor setback in this war against the idea that there are actually people who are white nationalists or racialists or whatever you want to call it. It's not all just a left-wing hoax.
Yeah, I'll jump on that real quick. It won't really affect Patriot Front in any way negatively. None of this Fed jacketing ever does. This is not the biggest time where accounts have gone out and said this, and it won't be the last. But every time it happens, there's a lot of outpouring of support that actually really turns out to help us. And as long as we're going viral, as long as our actual name and deeds are being shared around and people are debating the merits of what we do and who we are, we get people who are convinced and who join us. We have a lot of members who actually were first introduced to the concept of Patriot Front, what we were doing, by the Fed jacketing. And then later on, they came around because we naturally attract the kind of person who is inquisitive and wants to find the truth and justice of things. So such a person is going to move past the lies and deception and also be inherently untrustworthy of a big conservative Inc. account with an AI-generated profile picture. So it does help us, whether we're going viral for being Fed jacketing or being not Feds. It still ends up helping us directly or indirectly. Nice. Because there's really no damaging dirt for them to find that we've never been paid off by any of these people. We've never been involved in any of this kind of, criminal enterprise that's alleged. So it doesn't actually hurt us because these flimsy arguments are incredibly easy.
You must be concerned. You must be concerned about them trying to infiltrate the group with paid actors. How would you know if I showed up and applied for Patriot Front and I was like working for somebody? Like how would you be able to vet that? I don't really see how you can. Isn't that scary?
We do have a robust vetting process with several layers to it. And I can't tell you exactly everything we do. Otherwise, that would make it less effective. Right. But the vetting process is comprehensive. And there's even layers to that. So you want to prevent these kinds of people from joining the organization in the first place, of course. But even then, if a bad person does get into the organization, which, yeah, sure, could happen, you want to mitigate the actual damage that they could do. And when you look at actual cases of federal infiltration, mainly it's always drugs, guns, and violence. You look back 30 to 50 years into every time that they get somebody into one of these groups, and it's, again, maybe 90+% drugs, guns, or violence. Patriot Front explicitly does not do anything with guns. We do not protest with guns. Members are not allowed to buy, sell, or show guns to each other. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I believe Americans should all practice their rights to the fullest extent of their legal ability, and some of our rights should even be expanded in legal contexts in which I believe they haven't been infringed. But breaking the law is usually not a practical way to protest it. Anyways, moving on. Drugs, obviously the organization is incredibly sober. We do not do anything. We don't even have alcohol at events. So, whereas they might be able to take down a biker gang by getting people to smuggle drugs, that is completely unapproachable as a concept in the organization. And we also have strict rules about violence. Members are not allowed to propose, suggest, or even infer violent action. So if somebody who has these bad intentions gets into the organization, we act within 10 steps of the legal and practical boundaries of this so that we can catch somebody in that threshold before they even have a chance. Any of these subjects are so outlandishly abnormal in the organization that the moment they try to set anything like that up, they get sent packing, and they get to tell their handlers or whoever sent them that actually Patriot Front is a upright, moral, sober, drug-free organization that is peaceful and law-abiding. And they can tell their handlers that until the cows come home. So there's all these things. And there's also safe practices with information. Members are anonymous even to each other in most cases, and largely are vetting. Some people say, oh, well, how can you truly vet somebody if you don't have, their driver's license and their birth certificate and their social security number? It's not like they're going to the DMV with 7 different forms of identification. That can show you what a person's legal name is. If they're actually working for the feds, they can get a fake ID pretty easily. But what's harder to fake than an ID or a fake legal name that you could just make up in your head is what kind of man a person is, how he acts under pressure, how he acts around other men, how he acts and carries himself throughout various tasks. Because even if, we've joked about it before, but even if a Fed actually got into Patriot Front, all he would end up doing is a bunch of safe, law-abiding nationalist activism and probably end up, at one of our disaster relief missions where he gets to serve his country for a change. So, there's 5 different, there's a lot of ways we mitigate and nullify and move past these things. But the response to these types of risks is not to not organize, it's to organize smarter.
Nice. Pete, any final thoughts on that? And then we'll get into some clips here.
No, I mean, these lunatics, these menstruating women have attacked me over things that I've said about what Trump has been doing for the last 6 months. And my audience has grown 20 to 25%. So please keep attacking.
Right. Nice. Okay. Let's get into our first clip here. This was from an investigation.
What is your name again?
Jacqueline.
The Manhattan Institute in California, and they're interviewing an undocumented or a migrant transgender who's getting surgery paid for by the taxpayer.
Jacqueline.
This is the first time I live in a shelter.
Yeah. A lot of Latino here, so definitely some are migrants or undocumented.
I think. And me as a trans woman,
Yeah.
I feel safe.
Were you able to get the hormones or,
Yeah, I see that with my doctor.
So Medi-Cal, you got the breast implants?
Yes.
Wow, taxpayer funded. So here in California, they gave you the breast implant here.
Yes.
Free.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's a good benefit for other migrants here in California?
Yeah, even though you're undocumented, you can get it.
Did you do bottom surgery?
I'm waiting for that one.
Wow, you're waiting for bottom surgery. Okay. Are you happy with the results?
Yes.
Impossible to parody something like this. I mean, are you guys enjoying the golden age? Are you guys enjoying the Trump golden age? I know it's not Trump's fault that this is happening, but I mean, it's just crazy.
I'm glad I didn't eat before this.
Personally,
I'm against it.
Bold stance. Yeah.
The thing is that at this point, nothing shocks you because you know just exactly how bad things are. When you look at California, it's what I've been saying about Trump. Trump wants, Venezuela, Iran, whoever, Greenland. We don't even have California. We don't have Minneapolis.
No kidding.
Virginia is probably gone. I mean, the birth of high culture in white Anglo culture in this country, and we're worried about overseas adventures. It's and people can be, well, we can do both at the same time. Yeah, but you're not doing both at the same time. There's no reason that this thing should be getting surgery, much less be here.
Right.
I mean, what the hell is going on? So I mean, I don't know what the answer is at this point because it doesn't seem like anybody has what politics always comes down to, will to do anything about it. So, but hey, let's go to war. Let's go to war for Jews.
No, I've said things about that in the past, that all of the actual tools, a lot of people, I think they kind of overestimate the magnitude of the problems at hand, they say, oh, well, you'd need to destroy the Constitution and upend the entire like basic 3 branches system of government. You'd need some kind of totalitarian dictator for life in order to solve our problems. And that's not really the case, in my opinion. The basic tools to solve all of these problems definitely exists within the government. The actual power and material wealth exists to solve these problems. The problem is that there's not the willpower, like you mentioned, Pete. Is that the people in government are either too self-serving, too corrupt, ideologically compromised in 100 different ways. But the key thing they lack is willpower, because in organizing, I've achieved a lot of things that I've heard other people who do not organize say are very impractical, that, oh, you could never do that. You could never do that. And it's the truth of the matter, and the truth of many matters in politics, especially when you're a nationalist, that willpower is the actual ingredient that makes a lot of these things possible. And obviously, the fact that this is happening, stealing taxpayer money to do things like this, to go towards undocumented people, illegals, illegal aliens, illegal foreigners who will never be American, who are incapable of assimilating racially, genetically, sociologically, linguistically, geographically. It is an act of treason, in my opinion. And again, the actual legal mechanisms exist to solve these things, and the fact that they aren't is an act of apathy, at least by those who are sitting at the levers of power, and an act of complicity at worst.
Yeah, I know that, El Salvador is only 7 million people. I went there last year. It's unbelievable how you can just walk around at night and not have to look, you're in the city and you're not looking behind you for anyone. But Bukele, what he did was it took will. And I don't think you can have one person who can do that over 300, or according to Bovino, maybe even 400 million people at this point. But you get rid of enough of them and you have 50 Bukeles and you have mayors who are Bukeles, you can change things. I mean, you can change things very quickly. I mean, they went from the murder capital of the world to the safest country in the Western Hemisphere in 3 years. I mean, that's that's pretty miraculous. And the reason he was able to do it was he just had the will to do it and was like, you're going to have to kill me. And there's so much largesse available to anybody who gets into office that I think they get in there and they see how really messed up it is, and they'll really have to try hard, and it's easier to just take the money. And those people have to go too, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's very, very disappointing the way that they've backed off the deportations. That seems to be just a lack of will, like you guys are saying, and that's like really depressing. Because like, can we just get one good thing? We just get deportations. Let's move on. Let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah, okay. You guys are, I'm guessing, you're probably big Euphoria fans, right? You watch a lot of Euphoria?
Literally didn't know what it was until you like posted it in DMs.
Yeah, I've never seen an episode in my life personally. Thomas, do you like the show?
Never seen a minute of it.
Yeah, neither.
The same thing. I did a little Googling. I read an article or two about the latest episodes. Because
Sydney Sweeney. I've heard of Sydney Sweeney because she gets blasted all over Twitter all the time. And so I guess this is like the show she's in. And they've got her, doing OnlyFans, the character in the show. And this clip here, somebody posted this on X, and it sounds like an ad for OnlyFans. Just listen to this.
He just doesn't get the online world. I mean, people make so much money using it. I don't want to have to fight about the prices of floral arrangements or a wedding cake or ice luges.
I don't think you can make money that fast.
I mean, you can on OnlyFans.
Isn't that porn?
See, I used to think the same thing, but I started reading and it's actually the biggest misconception. I mean, the platform's used to sell content, communicate. I'd be the one in charge.
Wait.
Yeah, so I understand it's like a very popular show, and it feels, and with young people especially, as you might imagine, so it feels like when I watch that clip, it feels like I'm watching, you know, a paid ad read to tell young people to go use OnlyFans, basically.
Yeah, so obviously I'm about 100% certain that the director of the show is a Jewish man, in case anyone was curious, in case there was any ambiguity. No, I know we're all extremely surprised.
Yeah, what are the odds?
But I think the whole premise of the show, based on, you know, the glance that I took, was it is trying to like parody the worst of modern culture, but it doesn't achieve that because the people that are behind it are actually involved, immersed, and actually perpetuating the worst elements of culture. That there's absolutely nothing aspirational. There's nothing, even a reflection. There's no lesson. There's no moral. There's no refutation. So it really is just an absolute playground of slop that is being fed to the masses, you know, like pigs at a trough in terms of mass media entertainment. And it is morally objectionable. And, you know, again, these people who are involved in this have no actual interest in solving or approaching or even really dissecting any of these problems. They're just happy to profit off of people getting this kind of slop entertainment.
The creator, who's also the showrunner, who's also the writer, his name is Sam Levinson.
There you go.
Shocking. Are we shocked? But also, he's a Nepo baby. His dad is Barry Levinson, who did Rain Man, who did Diner, did all these movies. I mean, this is Hollywood.
Right.
We know this. This is why Pale of Settlement Jews, this is one of the things that they came here to take over. And guess what? He's from a Russian Jewish family. Shocked, right? I mean, we're just completely shocked.
Yeah, these industries should be nationalized until those involved. Well, a lot of these people need to be deported. Frankly,
I was curious what kind of solution. Like, I don't. Are you? You're kind of joking, but would you?
No,
would
I mean
you
a lot of
actually
these people
support
do need
that?
to be deported.
Okay.
So I think, you know, people need to be held accountable for the results of their actions. You know, just like if you ran a pharmaceutical company and your product ended up poisoning, you know, 1 million people, you should be charged with the equivalent of if you handed out poison to 1 million people, because you did. You know, the same thing with media. Now, I know there's a lot of legal nuances to this, and I do believe there should be reasonable limitations to this. But if you're pushing media, if you're pushing a deliberate lifestyle that people then end up adopting, and that has a tangible, markable negative impact on society, then you should be able to be held accountable for that, civilly, if not criminally. Again, the legal pathways for this kind of thing already exist. They just need to be utilized. And certain key industries, you know, especially ones that are so essential to the public good. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to make a movie, you know, in a nationalist country, you know, just being a free citizen. But some of these, there needs to be stronger limits, or at the very least, you know, obscenity laws, things that stop this kind of thing from happening. Obviously, I understand that the biggest issue here is not so much that it's all top down from Hollywood down to the general public. I think a lot of it, you know, we need, and even our approach to these problems is not, we can't start by fixing Hollywood. You need to actually fix the people that are involved. And that's why I'm such a big believer in social organizing. We need to create physical, social spaces which do not tolerate this kind of lifestyle. You know, we have all these aspirational beliefs and opinions about what men of our race and nation need to do, how they need to live. But the problem with a lot of people is they just believe those things internally, but they don't have anybody else to hold themselves accountable. And they are not involved in tight-knit communities that can actually promote virtue and punish vice. That's a big reason why I organize, why we have all these networks around the country that are involved with families, businesses, et cetera, because it actually creates a meritocratic hierarchy that, you know, within the scope of race and nation, actually promotes and encourages and elevates and empowers the virtuous and those who follow our tenets. And it will apply more constraint and encouragement and correction to those who have issues with vice. And if that doesn't work, then it will remove them, you know, with a due amount of prejudicial opinion to that which is warranted. So, you need to attack the problem from several vectors, but in a sane country, doing that would not be expressly legal.
Right.
We also have to understand that for 100 years we've been undergoing a social engineering regime that basically has rewired people's brains to think all of this is normal. Everything from the entertainment, from our belief system to how this Judeo-capitalism we have, this is like freedom compared to other places. All of it we have to let go. And what we really need to be doing is training people to think differently until people start thinking differently and people start realizing that this is all new. This was all forced upon us, and we have to change the way we look at it. These people are always going to have power over us because there's always going to be a market for what they're selling. So you have to take some responsibility yourself too.
I mean, the 100 years thing, that's so true. It's so frustrating. Don't even get me started, and it's like with the conversations around Christianity and all these people attacking Christianity now because it's cucked and it's like, it's all the anti-racist and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but you understand that the whole country's been socially engineered for, like, it wasn't always like
everything. Everything's cut.
Anyway, don't get me started. I want to go to the next clip, or we'll be here all day, because I definitely want to get to the black pill, the Dave Smith one, because I really want to hear what you guys have to say, because I'm just I'm sort of torn myself. But we got a couple more before that, I think, starting with this one.
Only 2 weeks ago, a week before I went away, I opened Twitter on my phone. What did I see? I saw Jewish privilege trending. Do you know how that feels?
First time? I do, actually. Yeah. It goes back about 10, 12 years when people started talking about white privilege all the time in my life. So I actually do know how it feels. Yeah.
I think it's good that people on social media platforms are recognizing Jews more as a group. I think it's a very interesting change that's taken place in the last few years, which, it seems that there's not exactly what I would have expected, but that the recognition of Jews as a socially, culturally, racially knit group that has a certain political, social, cultural objective and agenda, has even surpassed in public normalcy, believing that about any other race, because I suppose it's a more inclusive, anti-Semitism is a more inclusive stance to hold. But the adoption of these beliefs is actually very good, because it essentially it takes away a lot of the ambiguity that I feel like Jewish NGOs, social, political institutions used to operate under. And obviously the war in the Middle East, the several wars, I think we're up to 5 or 6 now, at least in the last administration, has really not robbed, it's taken it justly, the victim status, the perpetual victim status from the Jewish people, as it were. And now they are, in part, you could say, being exposed to the same ideological and dialectical infrastructure they have so painstakingly handcrafted for use against the European race.
Yeah, it's not only online. I don't know how many people reach out to me a week and say, I was just out in public and somebody struck up a conversation with me and like tried to J-pill me. I mean, I live in I live in a small town in Alabama with like 15 Baptist churches, and a 60-year-old woman tried to J-pill me the other day. Just out of someone I've seen, I've known, had interactions with for a few years and everything. And she just starts talking about Israel and the Jews and everything. And I'm just like, yeah, man, if you understand like the history of this, especially Russia, I mean, I've been reading, and we're on episode 124 of Reading Through 200 Years Together by Solzhenitsyn, me and Dr. Matthew Raphael Johnson. And we're covering, it just basically covers, the Jewish experience in Russia from 1795 to 1995. And the quote unquote peasants always know. They always know. They always notice And they'll even get to the point where they can recognize who are like Talmudic Jews and who are Torah Jews and who are Karaite and who are this and that. Because when the pogroms happened, great stories behind that, all the bullshit we've been sold. It was always the peasants. It was never the czar. It was never like from the top down. It was always from the bottom up. They were always like, okay, we have a foreign element among us. They're destroying us and we need to get them out of here. And, that's what we're seeing now. It's not going to happen overnight. Everybody wants everything, fast food, but it's happening. And once, I said after October 7th, when I saw the response, but what the Jews decided to do to Gaza, and I saw certain people who I knew were Jewish, but had never talked about it before, and now they're like 100% homicidal. And then people I knew who like didn't want to talk about the JQ at all, like contacted me to say, hey, can we talk about this and everything? I was like, yeah, I think we've hit that, the spirit of the age has changed.
The genie's out of the bottle.
This isn't going to go away. And, if you would have told me, in 1998, when I read my first article from the Institute for Historical Review, that like in my lifetime, people would openly be discussing the Jews in public and the Jewish question, I had thought you're absolutely insane. So there's no telling what'll happen, the rest of my time on this earth.
Yeah. So anyway, this lady, she's talking about she's on the radio complaining about how Jewish privilege was trending on, on social media. You're never going to guess the next part. You're never going to guess what happens next.
Do you know how frightening that is? How angering that is?
It is total white privilege on your part to use the word oppression in such a easy, cavalier manner.
So there she is on the BBC. This is like an older clip talking about white privilege, right?
Playing to the gallery.
Yeah, go to church. Find Jesus. Why is everybody so horny here?
Please skip that one.
On this vote, the yeas are 202, 220.
All right, this was the vote to kick the 300,000 Haitians to revoke their visas, and it failed. And a bunch of Republicans, the Republicans control the House, and we still can't pass a vote to get rid of like 300,000 Haitians.
207. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The broader,
the chair will
sort of.
What do we do?
All right, this one. This is the one I want to get to, which it ties into like, what do we do here? This is the question of the day for me, right? Do I support the GOP that has betrayed me and disappointed me to no end and can't fix the problems because the Democrats want to kill me and put me in jail? Like, I see the arguments for both sides. So this is like a longer clip. I want to play it though, and then I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on this issue because I don't know what to do.
And Gen Z and for Gen Alpha, do we vote left in the midterms?
Well, I don't know. When it comes to voting, right? Like again, voting is like a strategic thing. That's what voting is about. It's like you have this little bit of a tiny little shred of authority over one election and then nothing else. That's just the hand you're dealt. And so what's your strategy there? Now, there are arguments all around. I mean, look, there is an argument that we'd be better off if Kamala Harris was president today. At this point, that's not that tough of an argument. And part, at least for me, of the best, strongest argument that we'd be better off with Kamala Harris is just that the whole resistance would still be the resistance. And you would, in a kind of, I don't know, maybe counterintuitive way, sometimes the best thing, if you're a right-winger, is for a Democrat to be the president. And sometimes the best thing, if you're a left-winger, is for a Republican to be the president. Because if they really blow it and they really mess up, it gives all of the like cultural energy back to you. And the best case of that is like, just look at, from a cultural perspective, the right lost everything through the first 4 years of Donald Trump. If you remember, this was the rise of the craziest wokeism in America, was all in Donald Trump's first term. And they only finally had some cultural victories when it was Joe Biden. And he was in there. And then all of a sudden you started having things like the Bud Light boycott and the Target boycott. And I mean, Elon Musk bought Twitter in those years. Like, there were a few major factors that happened. But anyway, look, I think there is an argument that the best thing right now is that the Democrats win the midterm elections, because the Republicans just have to be punished for this. Like, there's got to be a message that, like, you do this, there is a cost to it, even if that means we have to give ourselves the Democrats in Congress. But giving ourselves the Democrats in Congress is a different thing than, say, like, giving the Democrats the White House and both chambers of Congress, where now they can go crazy with their agenda. So, like, but I just kind of think the Democrats are going to win anyway. So I'm not signing up to vote for no Democrats. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'll ever put my name, like, if I'll ever vote for a major party candidate again, unless like Thomas Massey or someone like that runs. I just don't. I'm too disgusted by the fact that I supported Donald Trump, but I just don't want that filthy smell on me again. Not that I really care. Voting is stupid, but like, it's just, I don't know. I don't think I'll be voting Democrat. But I would say that I think the Democrats are going to win the midterm elections. That's going to happen. And so after that, my thing is just, if you're talking about on national politics level, no one from this administration can be supported, except Joe Kent. If you want to throw some support to Joe Kent, I got no problem with that. But anybody else who's attached to this should be our absolute standard. That there has to be like some type of line here. No supporting J.D. Vance, no supporting Marco Rubio, no supporting Tulsi Gabbard, no supporting any of them for the rest of them, no supporting Bobby Kennedy. There's just no... Sorry, even if you're just at the health department, resign in disgust. I don't care. You said you were the guy who was against the neocons and all of their wars and stuff. It specifically spoke out against what a nightmare war in Iran would be. Get away from the... I don't think that's too much for me to ask. Like, your president starts lying you into war and committing war crimes. Get away. And so, I don't know, maybe Thomas Massey will run. Maybe there'll be some outsider candidate who we can't think of right now who would actually be someone worth supporting. But to me... the bigger thing is like, I'm like, look, the baby boomers, whether slowly or quicker, are going to die. They're going to age out. I'm still going to be alive, hopefully. You guys are still going to be alive, hopefully. I got children who I'm very invested in still being alive after that. And so my thing is just like, what we can do in the meantime is wake up as many people as we can.
Okay. So, like I said, he said a bunch of things there, but kind of the core issue is, should I want the Democrats to win so that the GOP feels punished and feels like they're being held accountable? Or what do you guys think about that?
Pete, if you want to take this one first.
Sure. I mean, should you want? I mean, whatever you want, you're not going to get anyway. I mean, it doesn't really matter what you want.
I want total Jewish control.
That's like, I call it social media brain. People are more worried about like how people are going to react to their opinions on social media. So they want to get everything right. And then if they get something wrong, they cope their way and they do clown nose on and clown nose off to be like, oh, I was just kidding. No, I'm really right and everything. We're not in charge. Until we're in charge, there's no want, there's no desire, there's nothing. I mean, I can make arguments that it would be better if the Republicans won, if the Democrats won. I can make those arguments all day. In the end, I mean, I don't know. If the Democrats get into office, I think they're going to spend 2 years going after elected officials, not like, me, or my friends. The Republican,
my friend.
What?
Might be me and my friend, though.
Yeah, I know. But I think they're gonna put all their effort into like, Trump is the biggest raped goy slave we've ever had as president, and they're still going to go after him because that's what they do. You can bend over backwards for them. And they'll still be like, well, he said this one thing one time. He didn't give us enough of this. He didn't go hard on this enough. So let's destroy him. So they're just going to go after them if they get back into power, which I think they are. So, and if the Republicans win, well, if the Republicans win, we get another 2 years of kosher government. I mean, where's the win?
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts about this one. So, this is a question that's been around for a long time. This is certainly not new to the to the midterms and Trump's second term. I don't support the GOP, and Patriot Front has never supported the GOP. And a big reason why is that I've got my own dog in the fight. We have our own organizers in the field. We don't have to support the GOP. And, this video in particular features a Jew, a Haitian, and a Chinaman, who's, of course, extremely silent throughout the whole clip. But, I don't really know how effectively the American interest can be debated in a forum that includes no actual Americans. And then if you go into the comment section, there's hundreds and hundreds of people who have tons of ideas, tons of pitching ideas about do this, don't do this. Actually, we need to do this. Actually, we need to do that. Actually, you should do this, and I should do this, and you should do that, and I should do this. And nobody's actually doing anything, and people feel extremely disenfranchised. Well, that's because you are, and that sucks. I'm sorry about that. But the hard recognition you need to make, and everybody listening to this needs to make as well, is you can still be enfranchised in modern politics. You can still have an effect if you really want one, but you have to do more than vote, and you especially have to do more than just debate on whether or not you might even vote, sort of, kind of, maybe. If you work up the courage, which is what they're saying.
Yeah.
You need to organize and, moving on, trying to play strategy with these kinds of big political questions, like on any more than one assumption is just a total fool's errand, because you're talking about, oh, well, I'm going to vote left so I can then vote right over the course of 2 presidential administrations. That's 8 years. Just look back at the last 8 years. Do you have any idea how much has happened, how many variables that is? And this is a ridiculous plan, which assumes 1,000 different factors, none of which are actually under your control, like Pete was saying. And this specific question, this specific debate of, oh, well, we got to punish the GOP by actually maybe supporting the other side, happens every single time. It's a lot of the same podcasters. They add new ones to the list every time. But there's never any consensus. There's never any actual organized attempt to do this. There's never any certainty to the actual threat that they're making, which renders the whole thing impractical. There's no actual organized voting block, so there's no way to actually make this punishment happen, and even then to actually make it clear enough for the message to go through. Because if you just hurt the side that you might like more, and again, I don't support the GOP, but they don't actually know where it's coming from, that defeats the point. And if you want people to work or act a certain way, if you say that, oh, well, I think people should do this or people should do that, that's not enough. You can't just throw those instructions out into the world and expect them to do all the heavy lifting themselves. You actually need to organize people. And even then, assuming that, most politicians respond, I believe, to lower polling numbers by moderating towards the center to attract the center, because there's more people in the center than there are on the fringes. So if they're losing support, they will probably go to the center. So if you're a radical, like myself, if you're a revolutionary, like yours truly, what you actually have to do is organize with other people like yourself. I know I'm a big touter of organizing. It's a personal bias of mine. But you need to organize because as a smaller group, you can have a larger impact with coordinated action with a bunch of other people that are just like you. And if that's not enough, you can have extra leverage points by people who are either in these institutions, creating parallel institutions, or disrupting these institutions from within or without. But as a radical fringe element, you need to do more than just vote or not vote. You need to apply coordinated leverage. That's how radicals have always attained and grown their amount of power. So, and then it even goes to the question of, oh, well, maybe, these people say maybe Kamala Harris would be better. If Trump is too left-wing to support, then the left is too left-wing to support. Right. You don't have to support either side. And I said this in a recent video. Patriot Front was actually recently engaged in campaigning efforts against a huge illegal alien foreigner settlement in the south of Texas, outside of Houston. And there was a congressional race going on, and we didn't endorse any candidate. I was very clear that there's no nationalist on the ballot, but we were a one-issue campaigning group against a huge illegal alien settlement in the area. And we were trying to energize, and I do believe we had an effect on the actual outcome of the election in Congressional District I believe, in Texas, because we encouraged the constituency to apply more pressure to the candidates in the race, which we unfortunately don't get to choose, but we can change the sentiments and highlight not just, oh, well, they're illegal aliens, not just, oh, Trump border policy, yada, yada. We were pushing the dialogue with voters on their front porch, specifically in the direction of demographic change. And I said, and I still believe, that you're not going to have a nationalist set of candidates, let alone a nationalist set of statesmen, without first creating a nationalist constituency. Again, it's possible that some of these things get changed from the top down. It's possible that you get your, magic 1 in a million right guy in the right place in the right time who just manages to get up to the top through all the circumstances and chance, but you really cannot count on that. If you're counting on that alone, then you're just sitting on your hands. So you need to organize from the bottom up. And that means taking to the streets, and not in a lot of ways, but that means organizing with people. That means trying to implement the change that you think is worth doing yourself and taking some personal responsibility for the state of the country. That's what I think.
Makes a lot of sense.
One of the big tricks that they've played is that you just have to vote, how powerful voting is. And especially national voting, you can accomplish more in your state than you can accomplish nationally. And the reason people love to vote, and the reason why there are plan trusters right now, is because they don't want to get off their ass and do anything. They'll have to, once you realize that voting for the president isn't going to change anything, well, then what do? Well, you can sit at home and you can blackpill and you can become a gooner, or you can start organizing with people and start talking. The local sheriff has more power than most people know. If you get one of your people elected sheriff, your county can do a lot to mitigate the damage from that's coming from this culture. And people just don't want to do that. They're either convinced that, oh, all I got to do is vote and we'll get a president in there one day that'll change everything. No, you're going to have to do something yourself, or just stop complaining. It's one of the worst things about Twitter is people think that because they're posting all day. I'm not talking about people who are there to make money. I'm talking about people who actually really care, and really care about their people, care about white people, care about the European project as it has existed. They think that they're winning a war on Twitter, and they're just not. They would be much better off logging off. They'd be much better off logging off and getting together with 4 or 5 people that share their values and going to a friggin' coffee shop and talking, and just start talking about the issues and what you can do. And but that is the reason people don't want to do that, is it takes effort. That's why it's always been a vanguard. It's always been a small group of people organizing who push the culture in a certain direction, push politics in a certain direction. Do you think everyone in Washington, D.C. has power? It's at most 200 people that are in control of this whole thing, that are pushing it in one direction. If you have 200 people 200 people can organize. 350 million people can't organize. So until people decide, and I know I'm just reiterating a lot of what Thomas said, you're not going to see change. Because if you're just waiting for that perfect person to come along, they're not coming along. That perfect person is probably you. You just got to accept it.
Yeah, if I could just jump in. So, the idea of just getting together with a local group of people that want to make these certain things happen, again, that's what I'm doing. That's what the organization actually exists to do. And we have those local, it's usually more than 4, no matter where you are. Hundreds of people can organize. Millions of people, it's much more difficult. But we have systems already made for these things. The beautiful thing about what Patriot Front has achieved and accomplished and grown and structured over, I'm going on 10, I've been nationalistly organizing, if you will, for more than 10 years now, since I was a teenager. And Patriot Front is about to hit 10 years old. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting already. We've created a lot of the systems already. We've learned a lot of the mistakes the hard way already. For people now who are upset about these things, who have the right beliefs and actually want to put in that effort. Is it easy? No. Is it going to be handed to you? No, but nothing worth having is so easy, right? Heaven knows how to place a proper price upon its goods, and nothing so celestial an article as freedom and liberty would be given to you so cheaply, right? So you have to apply some effort. But a lot of the hardest part has already been done for you. A lot of the organizing has already taken place. And some magical nationalist president isn't going to fix your life. You can have all the legislation you want at the top of the government, but it's not going to mean that you're a hypothetical person. It's somebody on Twitter. It's not going to mean that you're going to scroll less. It's not going to mean that you're going to suddenly start eating better and feeling better about the world. No, you have to take charge of your own life if you expect anybody to do that for themselves. You need to set an example, and honestly, that's going to help your perspective on the world a lot. And PF is building a number of networks all across the country. We have about 22 networks right now. And we are achieving impacts to local politics. When and where we choose, we pick our battles very carefully. But this is something we're already doing. Now, there's no Patriot Front sheriffs at the moment, and if there was, I certainly wouldn't tell you. But we are able to, with the mechanisms we have now, today, presently, as I am speaking to you, impact local races and elections and have more nationalist people get into offices with actual influence. We are doing that now. So a lot of people, they have all these theories, they have all these, oh, well, you should do this, you should do that. Well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And it's infinite idea guy syndrome. And then by the time they've actually concluded, by the end of their 10-hour Twitter debate, they've concluded, oh, well, we'll just figure it out later. And then nothing gets done, right? If people are watching, listening, seeing that are kind of fed up with that whole idea or don't like waiting on the Twitter Democratic cacophony to come to a conclusion, then they should seek out the organization. And of course, I'm biased in that regard, but it's true. We've achieved a conclusion and a consensus and a coordinated plan of attack for a lot of these problems already. And I'm happy to have done that for the people that want to achieve these goals.
And so basically anybody who's anywhere in America, they can apply just like through the website, or is it only in certain locations where the networks are, or how to...
So Patriot Front recruits nationally on all 48 contiguous states and Alaska. We don't recruit in Hawaii, so people who live in Hawaii are going to have to find something else to do. We recruit everywhere. We have members and clusters of membership and networks of membership across the entire country. Even if you live in the most podunk corner of the most podunk state, we can find you. We can get men to organize with you. If you are in Manhattan, New York, or Manhattan, Kansas, we can get to you. We can organize you. We have people doing family networking. We have people creating gyms. We have people going to fitness competitions. We have people doing charity work. We have people doing homeschooling co-ops. We have people obviously doing poster, banner, stencil activism, social media teams, coordinating content, video editing, hikes, outdoorsmanship, workshops on first aid, woodworking, whatever, orienteering, rappelling. The list goes on and on and on. Patriot Front is it's an umbrella of a great things. It's a movement. It's a nation within a nation. So it is large enough, and the scope of what we aim to achieve is broad enough to include a great number of tactics and lifestyles and ambitions within the scope of the organization, because we want to achieve a cross-section of all the best qualities, people, and actual virtues of the nation. So there's blue collar, there's white collar, there's everything in between. But we're heavily motivated in achieving all these things. And again, if you want to join and you're over the age of 18 and if any of this makes sense to you, then you should definitely check out the website at patriotfront.us.
Yeah, somebody in the comments or in the chat was saying, but under the contact it says I don't want to get banned. I explained at the start of the show. I was worried if I put the URL on YouTube, I don't know if it's allowed, but the website is patriotfront.us, right? That's That's the
Yes, sir, it
URL.
is.
I want to ask you, Thomas, about another controversial guy, Nick Fuentes, who my understanding is he's not very like what you're saying here makes sense to me. My understanding is Nick is not super keen on Patriot Front. I don't know exactly. You might know better than me, maybe what his like grievances are. My understanding is he thinks it's like you're going to ruin your life if you go do that. And instead you should be like, you know, trying to go to law school and join the GOP or something like that. I guess I don't know exactly what he says. Maybe you do, but, what you're saying makes sense to me. Like that you could have an influence on politics through organizing.
Yeah, so you know, I have nothing personally against Nick Fuentes. I don't think he's a bad person. I don't hate him. I don't think he's a Fed or a paid actor or any of that stuff. You know, obviously he has volleyed a few strategic critiques, I would say, over the years, and I don't believe his opinion has changed. You know, which is everybody's entitled to their own opinions, I suppose. But the idea that you either have the public nationalist organizing or the infiltrating the institutions thing, these tactics don't have to be entirely, you know, binary that you have to do one or the other. Again, I'm a firm believer, you know, I just listed all the things that we're doing. You know, I'm a firm believer that you should be trying everything you possibly can that's worth doing. It doesn't mean that it has to achieve victory in itself, but I actually think, I mean, think about the left. Think about everything that has changed, you know, towards the left in the last 50 years. Were they trying to influence, impact, manipulate, coerce, corrupt one thing at a time? You know, was it a 10-year span where they said, all right, now we're going to make abortion legal, and then we're going to do the gay stuff. Oh, then we're going to do, you know, the immigration stuff. Then we're going to open up the borders. No, it was all at once, all the time. And just the same, we need to be applying a vast concert of tactics in congruence with each other at the same time, not only because that's effective pragmatically in the field of politics, but also because you have a lot of different people that you need to organize, and you don't want to limit that number with it, you know, artificially. Now, obviously you need to limit it valuably with quality control, but you don't need to apply artificial standards or limitations arbitrarily to cut up your membership. So there's a lot of people who have a lot of different skill sets, and they can all play a part. So, you know, am I for people going to law school and colleges and getting fancy degrees and doing fancy jobs and getting into positions of power? Absolutely. But when it comes specifically to the idea of, oh, well, you need to infiltrate these things, I think there is a serious question to be asked that if you tell somebody, hey, go infiltrate, ingratiate, you know, integrate yourself with one of these very powerful, influential institutions, the question is, when it's time for that person to actually start exercising change in a certain political direction, by that time, who has more influence or control over them? Mm-hmm. You know, the podcaster, the pundit, the, you know, the thought leader, so to speak, or the institution that they've actually been integrated with for a decade at that point. I think it's fair to say that it would be the latter. And that means that, you know, who's actually infiltrated who, right? What actual change has been implemented? So it's a question of, you need organization, you need cohesion, you need people who are loyal to something more fervently, more radically than whatever they are going into. And they actually need to be beholden to it. They need to owe their radicals, their fellow, you know, actors for change, more than they do the place they're going into. And again, I hate to use the left as an example, but, you know, you look at a lot of these leftists who went into these institutions and changed and corrupted and perverted them in these ways. They were involved in associations, groups, cliques, parties, things of that nature. You know, they were beholden to these things, and they often got into those positions because of an organized push to get them there. So I think you need an organized approach, you know, and again, the strategy of, oh, Ivy League and doctorate, you know, that's great, and that's part of the solution, but not everybody's going to be a millionaire business owner. You know, not everybody's going to fit into that thing, and there's still so much that so many more people can do to actually enact positive change. Because again, change isn't just about the legislative process. Change is about people's lives. The only reason we want to actually change the government is to change laws, change systems, to change lives. But people focus so much on that they forget you can actually change people's lives directly You know, the people you know, the people you work with. You can create spaces and communities with certain cultures that actually change the lives of the people within them for the better. So again, you need to be trying everything. And again, I don't hate Fuentes. I think he's a smart guy. I think, he's coming at these critiques from an area of reason, but obviously I disagree with him.
Yeah. Do you guys have a no groiper rule? Do you vet people for being groipers to keep that?
We have members who there's not a lot of members who are like big Nick Fuentes fans, as I'm sure you can imagine.
He's pretty influential. I'm sure there's some people who watch him. That was kind of a joke. I do have one more serious question. I'm sorry, Pete. I know I'm kind of ignoring you. It's just I wanted to kind of get into this with Thomas a little bit because he's such a unique figure, and it's my first time talking to him. So I wanted to ask you, like, on that topic of ruining people's lives, what you guys did get arrested in Coeur d'Alene, and I don't know exactly what was the fallout with that. And it seems to me like it was like a total, like you got totally stitched up in that. But I guess that would be the counter argument. The example of like, here's the downside to doing this is you might get arrested and your mugshot goes out in the media, and now you're kind of stained for life, basically. So
sure. So
what what about that situation? And do you guys think you can avoid that, or do you think there's going to be more issues like that?
Well, yeah. So that was already a few years ago. I think that was in 2022. So it was a long time ago already. I mean, first of all, people outside of Patriot Front get arrested in politics. All the J6ers are a great example of this. Didn't the MyPillow guy get arrested for something as well? I mean, like it can happen to anybody. Trump has a mugshot. Let's stop talking my mugshot. Trump has a mugshot. So obviously it can happen to a lot of more people than you think. And the specific instance in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho was a confluence. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. I could rattle on for a whole show about it. But the specific, what happened was a confluence of about 9 different, very unique factors. It was a small town with a pre-existing pride protest that a separate, militia type group had already made a concerning statement, kind of alluding to a possible violent intention to do that, which set the entire county's police force and the city's police force were all on hair trigger loaded for bear. And they were already there. And then it took a specific instance of us getting into a truck at the wrong parking lot at the wrong minute, at the wrong moment, for one person to make a phone call, which used the wrong phrasing, which led the dispatcher to think that we were the militia group, which led them to pull us over. And then they had a specific, I think it was the police chief or lieutenant or whatever, who just so happened to have at one point done training with the IDF in Israel. Not surprised given the outcome, but and then even then, I think the city cops or whatever were almost just happy to trespass us from the town, which means, hey, just scram and don't come back. And you point 30 rifles at me and my friends and tell us to get out of town for a bit. It probably would have worked at that point. And then they decided to reverse the decision with this complicated thing. And even then, we won some of those cases. My charges and the charges of one of the other guys were dropped. And most of the guys ended up only leaving with a, $200 fine and a don't come back to the park for a year or two, which is really easy for somebody who lives in Alabama to not visit a park in Idaho. So, there was a lot of things. And I should say that every single member who was with us on that day, who worked with us, who stayed coordinated, who stayed above board on everything, ended up better off than they were. A lot of those guys are still with us. They're still working. They're still organizing. I think the majority of them are. And their lives are better than they were, obviously, at that moment and even before that moment. Doxing, even an arrest, even a criminal charge, these things are not life sentences. There was another it was big on Twitter. There was an article by the Texas Observer who, did this long, year-long investigation.
I saw that. Yeah. The businesses, going after the businesses.
It totally blew up in their face. We have businesses that employ guys. We have business owners. We have an internal system of job networking that protects our people against these types of outcomes. So, is it good when these things happen? Obviously not. Are we able to avoid it? Obviously we have. This is the only instance, again, 9+ years of organizing, and this is the one time that's ever happened. And again, it was a really unique set of circumstances, and everything we could have possibly learned from that, we have learned. Okay. We act in a lot of different ways than we did back then. And I think the evidence proves. So, and even then, Is it our fault we got arrested? No, ultimately it's the fault of the people in the government or the police who decided to make that arrest, and the prosecutor who decided to uphold that charge, and the judges who decided not to immediately dismiss it. I mean, place the responsibility where the responsibility goes.
Sure.
But even then, we have made a lot of changes and we have done everything we can. But is the risk of something like that happening enough for me to say, well, for everything else we've done positive, everything else we've succeeded at, let's throw it away just in case that ever happens again? No, I don't think that's enough for me, which I know it's not what you're alleging.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I just wanted to hear your thoughts. I appreciate that. I did, when the Texas Observer thing happened, I joked on my show. I was like, I would hire the Patriot Front roofing company if I was like that. I bet they do a good job. I bet they charge a reasonable price. You know what I mean? Probably like.
I certainly hope so.
Okay, thank you for that. I was nice to hear about the organization. Let's do some more clips here. This guy. So this clip is just whatever, but did you guys see this story this week, this controversy? There was an Italian magazine did a story about Gaza and settlements in the West Bank, and they put this guy, this Israeli IDF soldier's photo on the cover of the magazine. It was very funny. Is like the Israeli government and a bunch of like Jewish activists condemned the magazine and said like this is like an anti-Semitic caricature, like there's no way this is a real guy. Julius
Streicher couldn't draw that. He couldn't.
Yeah, they were comparing it to like Nazi propaganda and all this, and it's just an actual IDF soldier. So everybody's joking. Like, imagine being so like ugly and evil looking that your own government condemns your picture as like an anti-Semitic attack on your race.
If you would have drawn him in 1939 in Germany, they would have hung you at Nuremberg.
Yeah, not a great exemplary character of the Jewish race. Actually, maybe he is. Maybe it's a very illustrative thing. Yeah.
He looks Dominican. He looks like he's from the islands or something.
I will say in the picture, he like had a very weird grin going on, like a very toothy grin. But okay, let's see what else we got here. Just for the record, we do have super chats that we're going to get to shortly too, so make sure you get those in. And but we'll go through a few more clips. Oh, this is Sneeko getting assaulted
to a sock. Yeah, he deserved to be publicly executed. Yes. What are we talking about? What the?
It is kind of ironic. Sneeko's been he's been tweeting about racial supremacy and white supremacy and how he doesn't like white nationalists. And then, he goes in New York, he gets assaulted by a black guy. It's kind of funny how that works. What's that old saying? Nobody looks over their shoulder for Nazis
what
when they're at the
situational
ATM.
Awareness. What the hell, man?
It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
Personally, I'm against
in America,
but I suppose it happens.
Okay, this is a partnership between the NRA and a Jewish organization for Jews to get armed up and learn how to shoot people.
Today, Jewish families face unprecedented threats simply for who they are.
We assess this attack to be a Hezbollah-inspired act of terrorism.
Many never thought they'd need to defend themselves until now.
In today's world, there's a lot of anti-Semitism. Everybody needs to protect themselves.
Judaism takes any life-saving precaution very seriously. You always want to have the upper hand so that the people who protect human life, the people who value human life above all, they're the ones calling the shots.
Enter Locks and Loaded, a national Jewish advocacy group partnering with the NRA to train and arm those facing anti-Semitism and physical harm.
The Second Amendment is meant for every single American citizen.
We're trained on how to safely and securely carry and handle a weapon. And it allows us to protect ourselves, our family.
It's very important that Jews learn to defend themselves.
and learning to shoot is critical.
And I feel it's important for women to learn how to shoot also, especially during these times because of anti-Semitism. We shouldn't have to feel like we're victims.
Locks and Loaded.
Come on, that's not real. That's like
it feels like a sketch. It does feel like a sketch.
Terrible name. Well, it's another example of conservatives are happy to recognize any ethnic identity as a political vector, except for the white European American, again, synonymous, all of those, identity that actually their membership and the country and the institutions and the Bill of Rights they're so fond of is actually reliant upon and based on. You also saw the things with, was it TPUSA back in the day where they would have, the Hispanic and the Black and the women and all the other leadership summits, but
right.
They're missing a key demographic there. This is just another example of that. Conservatives are happy to, they're playing by the wrong rule set, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, we see white people are murdered by Black people every day in America. It's like one of the most common crime stories, especially if you're talking specifically about interracial crime. And and there's like a lot of these high profile cases all the time, like the Carmelo Anthony thing and all the time, but there's never like a rallying cry of like we need to train white people how to defend themselves against Black murderers. You know what I mean? Like you're going to see that video come from the NRA, right?
I'm not holding my breath, but I mean, I actually, for the record, after the, for example, after in Charlotte, North Carolina, after the murder of Irina Zarutska, we did have a bunch of activists go there, and they were patrolling the trains. They were visible. They did activism around the city. And, a key element of that, and, part of the message and part of what I believe as a consequence is that, if there were nationalist men of the type of quality and standard that we uphold on that train at that time, then it wouldn't have happened, right? If more men were more like us in general, then these types of things would happen less often. Even if that's just down to social vigilance, not, you can say all the way up to, oh, well, you'd shoot the guy, right? But it's not just that. It's about a lack of vulnerability. It's about an increased amount of vigilance. It's about people having the core sense of danger and the actual strength to not appear as a victim, as a target in those circumstances, because there's a lot of people out there who prey upon weakness. These African criminals are huge on that. So, that's a big angle of another thing that we're doing, because, we are training up. And now we don't do training with firearms. It's a very explicit thing that we don't do. But, again, making men more confident, smarter, better able to navigate physical spaces, martial arts training to defend themselves if they ever have to, but also as a sport that helps train the mind and body to be better, functional. That is hugely important and definitely worth doing.
You showed the video of Sneeko getting hit, and you said maybe there was a reason he got hit. All I saw in that video was someone going anti-Semitism is on the rise and not asking why.
Yeah. Well, for no reason at all, right? Okay, the clavicular. Yeah, are you familiar with clavicular? You look a little bit confused, and also like I'm torturing you a little bit.
Me?
Yeah.
Watching some of these clips is a little torture. No, I'm familiar with the guy, very unfortunately. Drugs are bad. Drugs are bad. There is a very healthy way to say that, oh, well, men, especially young men, need to make the most of themselves. They need to be fit and, socially mobile and able to achieve their goals and motivated and all these things. That's good. I think there is kind of a perverted, corrupted version of it, which is just leeching off of all the rules and misassumptions of, modernity, where it's all about appearance. It's all about hypergamy. It's all about, these frivolous money status, and getting an entire pharmacy of strange Chinese pharmaceuticals injected straight into your, your body. I think that's a very unproductive way to do it. And I think a big reason why some of these people are popular, the looks maxers, is because it's kind of a spectacle. It's kind of like the modern version of a circus bearded lady. It's like, hey, let's all, pay money to watch these people, engage in this weird lifestyle that's so outlandish and hit themselves with hammers. There is something to it, I get, but these are not lifestyles which young men need to be looking towards, for example. And again, if there was ever an organization out there that fostered the right type of moral, virtuous, physically strenuous, adventurous, confidence building, material prosperity creating lifestyle, well, I'd know about it, surely, if one such group existed.
It seems like end of empire stuff to me. You get troons at the end of empire. You get people who just become overly concerned with looks, and it's what it looks like here. It's just like I don't even know if this is right, if this is supposed to be right wing or conservative, or what these what this even is, but I mean, I guess I'm just too old to understand what.
I mean, it kind of ties into what you were saying about the Euphoria thing, Thomas, with like how it's not just top down. Like we have sort of a cultural issue of decay and corruption, and that is sort of ubiquitous.
Yeah, you look at these people, you look at, Mr. Clavicle there, and you look at all the OnlyFans models, and they have a lot of money, they have a lot of, they have a large audience, but, for every, guy like, the Clavicle guy there, and for every, millionaire OnlyFans model, how many people got them to that situation? Are you able, you could try to harass these people online, and you could try to send all these messages and arguments that, oh, well, you should change your ways, yada, yada, yada. They've been made into what they are already in a lot of cases. I'm not saying they're beyond all sense of salvation. I hope they do whatever they can to make themselves less of what they are and more of what they should be. But again, responsibility, right? The people in these audience, the great masses of people that maybe actively, maybe tacitly push these things along, oftentimes just because they find it entertaining, need to think about the consequences. And we can reach those people. I know I do every single day. We create better versions of men that arrive at the organization. But again, responsibility, right? Consensus needs to be built, and we actually need to change the culture where we can, so we can have a larger coordinated block of people that can then exercise a greater amount of influence to change it where we can't.
All right, I wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on the Donald Trump Jesus meme scandal here, but I'll play this clip of Trump explaining himself when he was asked about it, his Truth Social post from last week.
Mr. President, did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross, as a Red Cross worker there, which we support, and only the fake news could come up with that one. So I had
it's got like a glowing ball of light in his hand.
I've seen doctors before. I've never seen a doctor in long flowing robes with a miniature sun in his hand. I guess I haven't gone to the hospitals that the president gets to go to.
I mean, I know a lot of people got upset over this, and I mean, I expect stuff like this. Where I hate to say it again, that end of empire kind of thing, but just your leadership as things are falling apart are going to offend, the majority of the population, especially things that are important to them, like their faith. So, I mean, my favorite part is the demon up here. That's that's the first thing I saw when I looked at this, and I'm like,
oh, that's just that is.
I'm like, oh, this is cool. So someone put a demon. I'm telling you, one of his staffers made this for him and changed that, because that was a soldier, it wasn't a demon, and put the demon there. And I'm not saying it was to like try to make him look bad. I think it's just, I mean,
are you talking about the thing in the sky above him?
Yeah. Those were supposed to be soldiers, and the winged one is a demon from a game, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody points it out, and it's just like, all right, well, I mean, what would you expect from some guy who's doing the work of people who are evil. So, I mean, this didn't shock me at all as a Catholic. I was just like, all right, well, this seems about normal for the time.
I'm almost more offended at the president posting AI slop artwork than the actual contents of
just
it.
The fact that it's AI.
As an actual artist myself, I have a lot of protests about this kind of creation of this nonsensical, uncanny valley craziness. Because it is just, especially seeing, I do think there is a realm of prestige and seriousness and kind of decorum, which comes with these very high echelons of institutional influence and power within the country. And it's a lot harder to build than it is to throw away. And, when you have, I think this administration too is a great example of this. When you have, the president posting like comical, crazy AI edits, and there's certainly been weirder stuff than this. There was the one where Trump was in a fighter jet dropping poop on protesters, which again, it's funny, I get it, but it's also the president of the United States, and can we find our humor elsewhere, please? And then you have like the Border Patrol posting videos to like pop music of them deporting people. The videos of deporting people, great, but I do think there is a worrying reduction in the actual seriousness and prestige and kind of formality of these institutions, which I feel like once it's been thrown away, it's really hard to get back. And I guess I don't care as much because I actually want these institutions to throw away their legitimacy so I can come and pick it up. But in a right society and in a way, in a place where things are as they should be, as they ought to be, you definitely would have a lot more of a serious disposition among a lot of these people. But I don't know, Trump made his own Facebook and he's a boomer and he's posting AI boomer slop on his own Facebook. So it's all very par for the course.
Yeah. Do you guys
I mean, there's a really good chance that today he freed 8 AI Iranian women who were going to be killed by the government.
Were those AI?
I don't know if anybody that's what I kept hearing people say was they were examining it. It's like, those women don't exist.
That's funny.
And it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, that
was one of my thoughts on this meme. Was I was kind of like, my takeaway is like, it's kind of concerning just the lack of judgment it shows, because how did he think this was going to go over? He deleted the post, the True Social post. Everybody was mad. And the question is like, what did he think was going to happen? He couldn't predict that. He couldn't look at this picture and think maybe I shouldn't post this. You got the nuclear codes, and you can't even show good judgment with choosing your memes. But I also wanted to ask, are you guys watching? Are you familiar with Emily Yukis and her work? She's been doing her cartoon stuff on X. She did like the Will Stancil show, and recently she did one called the JD Vance show. You made me think of it when you were talking about the AI stuff, Thomas, because in the JD Vance show, it's so funny at the start. Like, it's got JD Vance and he's like watching these AI like American propaganda slop videos on his phone, and he's like just so into it. It's like he's like watching them to like cheer himself up or whatever. I thought that was like really funny satire. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. We can do like one or two more clips and then we'll get to the super chat.
I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that? It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better, and I do make people better. I make people a lot better. As an example, the 11,000, I understand your husband's going through treatment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's going through some very serious cancer treatment, so
yes, sir.
This goes a long way.
Yes, sir, it sure does.
Yeah.
That's a disgrace.
Oh yeah, this was a reaction to the meme, and there's a very funny tweet on Twitter. Somebody said,
how
"Oh no,
egotistical can you possibly be?
He's lost the gas station sunglasses, guys."
A man I voted for and trust.
I believe Zionism is a very racist ideology. It's an ethno-religious supremacist ideology, and it's the underpinning ideology that has caused the genocide of Palestinians in the hands of Israel and also the United States of America.
Jonah,
There's a lot to unpack there. What's your response?
Yeah, I mean, what Piker does that a lot of
Sorry about the desync. That's on CNN's.
People of his ilk do is they try to inoculate
his ilk.
So this is, for anybody who doesn't know, this is a leftist YouTube streamer named Vosh. And I thought this was kind of an interesting clip. I'll just let it speak for itself here.
Oh, yes, the host of Being Jewish with Jonah Platt.
Themselves against claims of Jew hatred by pointing it out in places that aren't them. He's been very clear pointing things out on the right. Oh, that's anti-Semitism.
Platt was born in Los Angeles, one of 5 children of Julian Mark Platt. His father is a film, television, and theater producer whose credits include Legally Blonde, Into the Woods, La La Land, Mary Poppins Returns, the musical Wicked, and its film adaptation. Wow, what a well-connected individual. His mother has served as chair of the Board of Trustees of the Jewish Federations of North America, which oversees 146 Jewish federations across the United States and Canada. He has 2 sisters and 2 brothers, including actor Ben Platt. He and his family are, you're not going to believe this, Jewish. Attended Jewish day school and sleepaway camp at Camp Ramah, affiliated with conservative Judaism. Birthright Israel. Harvard Westlake School. In 2023, Platt contributed a column to Variety as part of Variety's anti-Semitism and Hollywood package. Wow, October 2023. This guy's career of advocacy literally starts right after October 7th. In January 2024, he joined some other people in signing an open letter addressing the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, demanding it include Jews in its representation and inclusion standards. Oh, God forbid. Oh, my brothers and sisters, join me in prayer that one day Jews might be represented by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. I hope one day may we see a Jew in Hollywood. Jesus fucking Christ. 1 second.
So this guy, like 6 years ago, was calling me a far-right neo-Nazi, and then somebody sends me this clip. They're like, you got to check out Vosh. He's doing people's early life on Wikipedia. This kind of ties into what everybody's been saying about how the noticing is sort of ubiquitous. It's all over now. It's on levels unprecedented. But I just thought that was funny. This left guy just doing these tropes, complaining about Jews in Hollywood and that.
It definitely seems like Jews are losing a lot of the left because they're losing a lot of their victim status. I do still think, a big difference between PF and other people on people, entities, groups, organizations in the political sphere is it's not just enough to have the right opinion, to have the right stance, but you also need to have it for the right reason. Yeah. There's a lot of people on the left who are against Zionism, but I believe they're against Zionism for fundamentally wrong reasons that kind of destroy the point. They're against, like the Piker guy was saying that, oh, well, Zionism is bad because it's racist, just like white people, he would say. So, now if the swelling in that kind of leftist anti-Zionism causes harm to Israeli interests in the United States or abroad, then sure, whatever, that's great. But any actual kind of alliance, I'm not going to work with these people. I'm not going to hoot and holler when these people are going out into the streets doing their thing, even if they're against Israel, which I'm also against Israel. But again, core principle that I have and that Patriot Front carries is that you need to have the right belief, the right stance, the right principle, the right virtue for the right reasons. Because the reason that you have the principle or stance, belief, virtue is actually the point, right? It's actually your ideology. It's the reason that you do. So it's the more important thing. If you try to create a coalition of, only the subsidiary stances of the actual matters at hand, there's going to be nothing actually binding people together once push comes to shove, and it will.
Yeah, I like how his mother is in charge of an organization that is over 123 Jewish organizations, but international Jewry and organized Jewry doesn't exist. It's an anti-Semitic trope. That's a great point. We have to understand that, look, they're not just another interest group like Somalis. They're not just another interest group like, Squatemalans. They are a group that everywhere they go, they get power and they destroy the host. not only, I mean, they seek to not only destroy the host financially, materially, they seek to destroy them from their being, from the inside out, from their very core. Look what they've done here. There's no, you're the only group. White people aren't allowed to have aren't allowed to have an identity. They're the only group that's allowed to have an identity. They're the only group that are ever victims. That's their whole thing. And then when you point out that they're who they are, they go, "Oh, so you're blaming all your problems on me." Well, even if I was, who the hell did I learn that from? You blame all your problems on everyone else. If it wasn't for victimhood, you wouldn't exist. You wouldn't have. I mean, the whole basis, like, if you ask a Christian, what's the central core, they'll say Jesus Christ. You ask a Jew what keeps them together, what holds them together, they say the Holocaust. I mean, if that doesn't tell you who they are, that they're literally walking around saying we were victims, that means we have to destroy you. This is a core problem. And, I'm one of these people who's like, I don't care who destroys Israel. I don't care if it's the Houthis. I don't care if it's Iran. I don't care if it's Hamas. I don't care if it's Hezbollah. I don't care who takes down Jewish power in this country. We'll deal with whoever, if it's someone who's against us, we'll deal with it afterwards. It will be easier to deal with those people afterwards, because the Jewish lawyers and the Jewish politicians aren't going to be standing in the way. The rich Jews aren't going to be protecting that class anymore. So I just see one enemy that needs to be destroyed, and that is international Jewry and their power over my people. And that's it.
I'm also against that, for the record.
Yeah, same.
And because I'm not defending Jews to anybody, and I don't have any plans to do so. Personally, I recognize that there's a few more enemies out there, but also it's just I've inserted myself into the middle of the political arena, and you end up being attacked from a few sides. But definitely Jews are often found on many, whether it's blacks attacking us or Muslims attacking us. Usually Jews are cheering them on. So there's definitely some kind of syncretism going on.
Good word.
Okay, let's get into some super chats here, and then I'll let you guys go. We got X-Comer sent $10. He said, "Hi, Pete." Is that a friend of yours, X-Comer?
X-Comer is always in the Sunday stream. Good dude.
Nice. Thank you for that. Pigger Nussy, whose name I said wrong once, and so now I try to be careful. He said, "Excellent guest tonight, LP. Daily Cope has been great this week." By the way, that's my normal daily show. Thank you, Pigger Nussy. Maestro Mark says, "We need better propaganda. I'm tired of this anti-racist narrative, which is mostly just anti-white."
Working on it.
Okay. Donald Ductator said, "Great discussions, great guests. Thanks, LP." Thank you, sir. Iron Cow said, "Hail victory." I did see some questions in here. Let me see. Okay, Pigger Nussy said, "Random question. How badly do you guys think the whole Iran war is actually going versus how we're being told it's going?" Yeah, that's another one of those tough ones, because I've heard people say radically different things about it. My 2 cents on that, I don't know the answer to that specific question, but it feels like the political fallout might not be as bad as some people thought or were hoping for Trump. Like it feels kind of like he's getting like that, like it's almost like yesterday's news. And I don't know if you guys share that, but that's how it kind of feels to me. Is like nobody's really cares that much anymore, and everybody's kind of moving on. Of course, the situation it's not clear exactly how it's all going to play out, but I guess that's my 2 cents. But what do you guys think about that one?
Pete?
Yeah, I don't think the goal of this action was to win anything. The goal of Israel and the Jews is always to create chaos. The United States doesn't have a military that can fight against Iran. I mean, it's literally a landed fortress. So you're going to try and do things from the air. You're going to get shot down. I mean, this is a country that has an average IQ of 107. Our average IQ is like 99 or 100. Israel's is 92, by the way. These are not dumb people. Also, when you attack a people and you think, oh, we're being attacked, so we're gonna side with our attackers. No, they basically rallied around it. Going back to it, there's no chance of winning a war against Iran. Everyone knows that. This is to do exactly what they did to Libya, where you just make it complete chaos, so they don't have the power there to fund Hezbollah, fund the Houthis, to organize resistance against Israel. So they're just trying to destabilize the place so it breaks apart into 5 or 6 or 7 different warring tribes, and then they don't have to worry about it much anymore. That's my take.
Yeah, I would say that it's the actual goals of the war were a little dubious and might still be a little dubious, and I know the negotiations have been unproductive to say the least. But seeing as I think it's in a ceasefire right now, as of this moment, could change at any second. But I think the actual strategic objectives of the Trump administration have not been reached. Especially since there's now 2 blockades of the Strait of Hormuz instead of 1. Seems to be going in the wrong direction. I think the goal was to get it down to 0. Yeah, I mean, is it going to have huge electoral impacts? I'm not sure, but is it going to have huge geopolitical impacts? Yeah, probably. But I think the problem, like you said, it seems like old news. I think that's just a symptom of the crazy media hysteria, attention economy that we live in, and the fact that all news now needs to be ingested in, a under 30-second format. And it's hard to get people to mobilize or care about things when everything is constantly in peril. Yeah. Everything is always the big thing of our lifetime.
Yeah, right Iran was yesterday, SPLC. Now Trump's not the guy who went to war with Iran anymore. He's the guy who's taken down the SPLC.
It's always something new before you actually get a chance to digest the first thing. Mm-hmm. But I do think it'll definitely have an impact on the election, but not in a positive way. Wars rarely do that. At least not in this century. Maybe not the last one.
So but I think to his question though was kind of like, do you think that America is like secretly getting their asses completely kicked, or that Iran is getting completely destroyed, or like we just don't know? It doesn't seem like anybody really
If Iran was being totally destroyed, I feel like they would be really interested in sharing that. But do I think that there's like tons of secret U.S. casualties that actually, were, that like hundreds or thousands of people are dying? And I don't think that seems very unlikely, very difficult to hide to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least,
I don't know. I heard like reports that like they destroyed a bunch of our like bases and like radar.
That's 100%
stuff. They were attacking things, yeah, but stuff on the planes on the ground, I think.
Yeah,
was more common. But that's into the weeds.
All right. Jack Ladd says, Thomas, what are your views on other active groups like Blood Tribe and NSC? I don't even know what NSC is.
NSC no longer exists, so I will discard any opinion of them under that pretext. Blood Tribe, I do not really do things in an extremely similar style to them. If anybody with a keen eye can see the differences in the organization, and one may assume that the differences are due to my personal preference and my opinions on that I like to do things like I like to, and I would have a difference of approach. So I'll say that much. Do I think they're evil people? No, at least from what I know as an aggregate. What they're doing should be protected under the First Amendment. They have been harassed a little bit by police in the past. I do think that is generally unjust. But yeah, obviously I have a preference towards Patriot Front. It would be ridiculous if I didn't. I think that what I'm doing is the extremely appropriate thing. Should there be other nationalist groups? Sure. I'm a fan of people trying lots of different things, but yeah, I wouldn't endorse any other organization over my own, which I'm sure is extremely unsurprising.
Okay,
but again, I'm not flinging stones. I'm not casting any slander. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things, or at least they have good intentions and they're working very hard, and I appreciate that. But although I do have a preference that there is a righter and better way to do things, and I try to always do the best version of the best thing that I can find. I'm something of a tactical eugenicist. I think good tactics, good methods, good organizing needs to be propagated, and lesser effective versions perhaps need to yield and adapt and overcome and do better, because obviously that's just productivity. But anyways, I'll leave it there.
Sense. All right. Jacob Winkleman says, looks maxing is a corruption of beauty in a mate. Beauty is generally the output of a fit mate, but these people are becoming impotent, among other things, in pursuit of raw aesthetics. Yeah, there's kind of interesting underlying thing there about how like genetically, but prior to all these sort of treatments and peptides and steroids and everything, it was like you could look at somebody and you could kind of like take stock of them genetically just by looking at them, and that's getting more and more not unreliable or whatever. And plastic surgery is part of that too. Like just people are able to cover up their bad genetics, I guess I'm trying to say. And there's like a sort of a dysgenic effect there, or it makes mate selection a little bit less reliable. You guys get what I'm saying, right?
There should be an element of beauty and health that it is supposed to reveal the best version of what a thing is. There should be a genuine aspect of trying to reveal, again, the quality of what something is, not mask it to be something else. When you're talking about, I think I saw a clip of the guy, saying, oh, I want to get plastic surgery because that'll make a future, wife, partner of some kind, like him more, right? But that's, and they would know that you're not wearing your own face anymore.
Mm-hmm.
At least my guys, when they get home, they take off the mask, right? But if you do plastic surgery, it's implanted under your skin. There's psychological effects to that. And I honestly think, again, I don't want to be too harsh on any of these people, but it's not in a totally different universe from the types of, transgender people who need to do crazy biological things to make them satisfied with who they are. I think it's not totally the same, but it's not absolutely different either. And again, what's missing, like the super chat mentioned, is it's an inversion of nature. It's a discarding of nature made you a certain way, and you should respect that.
Pete, are you there? Are you frozen?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't really have anything on that. It's just, yeah.
All good. I just wasn't sure if we lost you or not. Okay. Dude Mon says, not super familiar with Pete. Am I right that you're the founder of the Old Glory Club? Love to see guys doing real work outside of the internet. Cheers to you. Is that true? Are you the founder?
I'm on the central committee. We are a fraternity. We have chapters that are decentralized, and we are non-political. So we get people together, and they can choose to organize how they wish, but the Old Glory Club is specifically not political. So
is there a chapter in Washington or something? Somebody was like telling me about that. I don't remember exactly what there is.
The Cascade Frontier. Yeah.
Okay.
We have 40 chapters, and it's growing. Applications in all the time. So yeah.
Wow, yeah, I've heard of that. I haven't looked into it that much, but I didn't know you were one of the founders. I did not know that. Okay. Cool. Donnie B says, has Patriot Front or the Old Glory Club denied membership to anyone they suspected of being nefarious? Have you guys ever had an applicant you turned away, I guess is the question.
We turn people away all the time. You know, if you're asking, you know, have we ever found somebody who, you know, seemed a little off, and then, you know, we rummaged through his pockets and found an FBI badge? No, it's usually not. It's usually not that simple. But I mean, yeah, people who are, and also there's a very blurry line between malice and incompetence. But yeah, I mean, applications get denied daily, and you know, people are removed from the organization for inactivity, misconduct, you know, and sometimes questionable conduct. Less often, but it still happens. Yeah, those things do happen. That's by no means an abnormal thing. But again, you know, has there been any, you know, example, you know, like it's some Scooby-Doo reveal where it's the FBI? That's not really how it works. And sometimes, you know, you kick somebody out. All I need to be convinced of is that they're not good for the organization. You know, at that time, you know, you'll try to go through and figure out everything that happened, but you know, it's not the case where, you know, you need to wait until it's super obvious that this person was a bad actor for that reason. All you need is bad action, not proof of being a bad actor. Again, you know, you need to have a lower threshold for bad things so that you don't get to worse things.
Yeah, we because we're decentralized, we allow the chapters to do their own vetting. And like Alabama, when Alabama started, there were like 100 applicants. Obviously 100 people were not accepted in. They went through, did interviews, decided people, you know, some people just weren't fit for the club. Central Committee has had a couple people who, you know, were there for the beginning and aren't there anymore. And it just happens. You know, you have people who come and go, people who move, people who decide that, you know, it's not for them, and people that, you know, I mean, explicitly people getting kicked out. I mean, that's up to the chapters. And the only way I would even know anything about that is if they came and they asked for guidance or advice on how to approach and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's a vetting process, and not everybody's going to be, you know, fit for the club. So you know, some people don't get in, some people get in, and then it's like, well, this isn't working out. You just keep it as civil as possible. And, you know, and yeah, I think, you know, Thomas knows this is better than anyone. As soon as you organize in real life, the people who are living their lives online are going to come up with the most amazing stories about exactly what your club is and what you know, who's running the club, who's influencing the club. And it's wonderful to watch. And, you know, I think the best way to handle those is silence. I'm not going to argue with idiots.
Do you guys have like guidelines that you give to the chapters to do the vetting and stuff like that? Or is it just totally like they're on their own?
Only if they ask. Normally what we do is we'll get like the biggest club, the one that's having the most success, the biggest chapter, the one who's having the most success. And if anybody asks, if a chapter asks for guidance, we'll send them to them.
Where can I ask, where is the most successful Old Glory Club?
Tennessee is really killing it right now. 3 chapters, another one happening, and they're using the contacts that they're making to do things outside of the purview of the Old Glory Club. Because, like I said, we're explicitly non-political.
Yeah.
So people can organize politically. It's just not the Old Glory Club. We introduce people to other people.
Cool. Let's see. Okay, Flyer Cake says, I'm too old and fat to be in Patriot Front, but I can still donate to LP stream. Hail victory. There's probably like such a thing as too fat for Patriot Front, right? Like you guys wouldn't let.
Yeah, for sure there is. Now, people can join Patriot Front if they're overweight. They just can't stay that way. Right. Now, if somebody is morbidly obese and would need to lose, you know, hundreds of pounds, then yeah, that they should probably do some of that and then come back around. But in a lot of cases, people who are overweight or out of shape, you might be better suited than you think, as long as you actually have the desire and the real encouragement, discipline to change.
Okay. And let's see, Mr. Eugenics. Yeah, okay. I found your Cuber Timo account and I unmuted you. So that's sorted. I think that's everything. Yeah. Oh, wait. Last one. I'm currently in college. This is from Hiding in Snow. I'm currently in college. I don't want to be too specific. Working towards an internship in DC. I've been considering joining PF, but the thing with that bitch, David Allen Capito II, worries me. Am I being too paranoid about doxing? I don't know who that is or what that is.
Yeah, so that's a reference to an infiltrator back in 2021, so around 5 years ago. So are you being too concerned? Not necessarily. So your safety is important. I care about the membership. I care about people's information. And even back then, even when that happened, and after that happened, the organization went through everything that was touched along the way, every vulnerability that was exploited, every lack of discipline that allowed any of those things to happen, where there was an information leak and some negative things happened as a result. But the organization obviously did.
Can I hear a little bit about that? So this is a guy, he came in with the intention to like dox people or reveal stuff. And
yeah, so what happened specifically was there was an infiltrator in Washington, and this is back during 2021, maybe even parts of 2020. So we are talking, very long time ago. And he was able to also hack into the server maliciously, hack into various things, and break into some people's personal information. Now, part of the problem, again, were certain software vulnerabilities, which are not, exclusive to Patriot Front. I mean, websites get hacked. I mean, the military has problems with these things from now and again. So, there were just issues with the software that was being used, which were obviously fixed. And there were issues with the types of compartmentalization of information on the software. And people were doxxed as a result of that. Some people lost their jobs. Again, like always, anybody who sticks with it and works hard and works with us to resolve these things always recovers from a dox. It is not a death sentence. Does it mean that you might not get a job in DC? Yeah, it does. But, does it mean that you can't be of use, that you can't make an impact? No, it doesn't. And even then, with the proper practices, with the proper discipline, and if you care about your safety, it sounds like you have it. It sounds like you've got what it takes. You are as safe and as anonymous as you want to be. In cases where, people were inconvenienced by their information at that time, back in 2020, 2021, it was some instances where they were a little posting too much of it themselves. Now, obviously, responsibility was still borne by all the responsible parties, myself included, and we did everything we could to resolve that. But, again, you're as anonymous as you want to be. And if something from 5 years ago that was conquered and recovered from is stopping you from engaging politically with an organization which has the means to help you achieve your objectives, I would say that might be a little less than reasonable. And you should reflect and come to the proper conclusion that whatever you're doing, you're better off doing it organized. Would be my opinion.
Okay. All right. That's it for Super Chats. And that's going to be it for the show. Want to give a big thank you to my guests. That was really interesting, really good time talking to both of you. Would you guys like to do some final plugs or let people know where to find you or what to look for, what projects you got coming in the future? Pete.
Sure. Check out the Quinones show. I'm pretty much everywhere except YouTube. Decided that the reading of 200 Years Together was a little too much for them.
Is that what did it? The book?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's explicitly what they said.
The book that Jordan
was,
Peterson wouldn't touch.
Yeah. So I'm on Rumble. You can see the videos still. They're ongoing. We just recorded episode 124 today. Just of 200 Years Together. It's on Rumble, Quinones Show, Odyssey, Quinones Show, and podcatchers. You can check us out there. Check me out there.
And as for myself, patriotfront.us. Go to the socials tab. You can see all of our various social media accounts that we run officially. You can read about the organization. We have a manifesto, which we wrote all the way back in 2017, still holds up today. A big point of that is that the reference of the organization over the last 10 years, things that we have always believed, always practiced, always been beholden to. The front page is a lot of great videos. The social, or there's the action page, which explains everything that we do. Just scroll all over the website. Every single page has something very valuable to do it. You can find us on Telegram. If you search in the right places, you can find a lot of our videos on Instagram and TikTok as well. These are all unofficial accounts because they go up and they come down and they go up and they come down. But there's a lot of our great content out there. If you just search, if you're able to search Patriot Front or find the right hashtags, if you find those accounts, I'm sure you can. You'll get in the algorithm and you'll follow our content that way. But most of our day-to-day content we post to Telegram. And look through the website. All the essential information is there. There's a wonderful FAQ that should answer a lot more of your questions. Great other interviews that I've done. And if all that sounds great to you, then I encourage you, I implore you, I beseech you to check out the join page if you think you have what it takes at patriotfront.us.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and to everybody sending the super chats. We appreciate the support. All right, everybody, that's it for the show. Have a good day. We will catch you later. Good night.
I was born in a prison with no hope for escape. I got used to the silence as I stuck in my cage. You cannot miss what you have never seen before. But deep inside you know there must be more. You cannot miss what you have never seen before. But deep inside you know there must be more. But I could not follow. It was a language I didn't know. I seen a light and it used to blind me. Was it real or just a dream? No, you cannot miss what you have never seen before. Deep inside you know there must be